Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Double Feature Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Allen. Joining me is co-host Danny.
Hello there, and we are also joined by Mr. L's new microphone. Show it
Yes,
off,
my
lads.
new microphone.
That's not a euphemism as
Hello.
well. Oh man, but yeah, you got a new microphone. We are upgrading constantly with this.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, but it does sound really good though. But yeah, it has been a while for us, like in terms of recording. We haven't. It's been a little bit, but yeah, this is episode 12, and we are this time spotlighting 28 years later, the new Danny Boyle film, the third film of the 28 days, weeks, years trilogy, whatever you call it. I just call it the 28 series, but yeah, the third of that trilogy. Um, One that I've been looking forward to. I think I mentioned when the first trailer came out, I talked about it, but yeah, I've been really looking forward to this one. I love Danny Boyle's films. I love zombie movies. I love horror movies. So I was very excited to cover this, and here we are. Here we are. So before we get to that, let's obviously cover part one because we've
Part
had a
one as
lot.
usual. Yeah, we got a lot
Yeah,
to
because
discuss
it's
with how long it's been.
it doesn't help that it's been quite a while, but also it's the summer movie season. It is the
Oh yeah.
blockbuster season. Everything is coming out. There's so much coming out at the minute that I can't keep track of all of it. But yeah, do you? Shall I start? Because I think you've got a fair bit of like a fair
Yeah.
few films you've.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So obviously, as well as 28 years later, I've also been watching a few other films that have come out recently, and there's been plenty to choose from. But I've seen a couple of other things. So first thing I'll mention, the Phoenician Scheme, the Wes Anderson film. I think I mentioned this last time, didn't I? The trailer for it.
Yeah.
I think I might have done. Yeah, I think you were like, "Well, I might go and see it." Let me just say, it's not worth it. I've always said I'm not the biggest Wes Anderson fan, and this is like the epitome of that. It's just the kind of, it's a very pedestrian film, very bog standard, it's left basically no impression on me. It's well put together. There's some fun characters. I enjoyed Michael Cera in the film because he was, he's a really good actor, but it's just not. It really didn't do a lot for me at all. So yeah, one of his weakest films for me.
Yeah.
Um, and the other film I saw that we're not spotlighting was Ballerina. It's the John Wick spin-off with Ana de Armas. I've actually not seen any of the John Wick films before, aside from part of the first film. But
Okay.
I thought it's a spin-off, so I guess it's kind of standalone. And yeah, I mean, as a fun action spy thriller with Ana de Armas, because obviously she's a great actor. If you remember No Time to Die, she was in Bond. Her scene was like the best part of the film. So to get like 2 hours of that, basically, I'm not complaining. It was fun set pieces. Just generally a pretty entertaining little action film. So those are the two films that I've seen in terms of what we're not spotlighting. And then I also have a bit of news I want to cover, which is to do with Bond as well. Funny I should mention that. It's with Bond 26 because we're getting a bit more news on obviously the current Amazon era of Bond.
Yeah.
Bond 26 has a director attached, Denis Villeneuve of the Dune duology and other films like Prisoners, which is fantastic. Um, he did the Blade Runner sequel with Ryan Gosling, 2049. Um, I'm I'm conflicted on this, actually. I like a lot of the decisions with this current Bond because I'm a massive Bond fan, as you bloody well know.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah, you
posters
couldn't
are
tell.
bad? They got like 25 of them back there.
Well, we're gonna have to I'm gonna have to like stick the Villeneuve on like on the end of the poster, just get a little sticky note. But yeah, with a lot of these choices, I'm not as clear cut. Like I've seen loads of people being like, "Yeah, this is so good," and it's like, yeah, Denny is a very good director. His films always look fantastic. They are gorgeous, and he's an acclaimed director. He's been an auteur director. He's like a almost in a kind of ballpark of Nolan a bit nowadays.
Okay.
But my only concern with him, I imagine he'll do a very good Bond film, but I don't know if it's fully going to be the style that I want it because I really enjoy, for me, I really enjoy the more light-hearted Bond films, particularly like the Roger Moore era and the Pierce Brosnan era. They could be a bit more out there, fantastical with like the gadgets and the humor. And Denny's films, he's not exactly known for having a lot of humor. If you watch Prisoners, it is a depressing film. It is a really depressing film. And his Dune duology, as well made as they are, they're not exactly fun films, So that's my only kind of caution. But on the flip side of that, Dune and Bond, for example, they are very different source material. Dune is this epic, dense, yeah, sci-fi story with a lot of this like mythology about it. Whereas Bond is this pulpy spy action series, so he's going to have a different approach to Dune than to Bond. So I'm open-minded, but I just wanted to make that because I've seen a lot of people like not blind praise, but like you know, complete praise and not really bringing that up. So I just wanted to throw my hat into the ring on that point of view.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who hasn't watched many Bond, it'll be interesting to see how it comes
Mhm.
out and how you
Mhm.
react to the film itself, and then
Yeah,
everyone else. It could be one to spotlight even, because if it's a brand
maybe
new
I'd love
Bond,
to.
it'd be a lot easier for
A
me to
new
get
era.
into.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Yeah, so obviously, I know we talked about No Time to Die on one
Yeah,
of the old podcasts that we did in one up, and because obviously the Daniel Craig films, they were so kind of they were kind of a bit Marvel-esque, like interconnected. They tried to anyway and failed. Let me be frank. Because Bond isn't that. Bond's not that franchise. Bond is like very standalone, and that's how that's why they work. That's why it's lasted. So that could be a great one to do. But I don't. Yeah, that's the, with Denny's style. It's a bit more gritty and grounded. We've had like 20 years of that with Daniel Craig, and I don't want more of that. I want something a bit different.
yeah,
Because that's the great thing with each Bond act. Craig's more gritty stuff is very different from the Pierce Brosnan more fantastical stuff, which is very different from the Timothy Dalton grittiness, which is different from the Roger Moore campiness. It's like a sort of pendulum, and I want it to swing to the more light-hearted stuff. But that's my
yeah.
2 cents. I said I was going to be quick. When you get me on Bond, there's no stopping me. But anyway, that's all my stuff out of the way. So you crack on with all your stuff.
So I've watched a lot of movies. First of all, I'm gonna really quickly slate this one clean. I watched Superman very recently, which obviously I'm not discussing yet because that is going to be part of our double spotlight next
Excellent.
episode. All I'm
Next
saying
episode.
is that I have watched it.
I haven't
But
yet.
uh, on the same day, I watched the new How to Train Your Dragon remake.
The live action
Which,
remake.
after
Yeah,
I'd watched it, we had a little conversation about it. We had a
we
little
have.
message
Yeah,
conversation, and
yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It
Mhm.
felt nowhere near as lifeless as like Disney's
Disney
live
ones.
action
Yeah.
remakes. It was really good. I think the casting was really good. The visuals were great,
Mhm.
and overall, I think I actually enjoyed it more than when I first watched the original. But then again, I
I,
was
I
very young
love.
when I first watched the original, so I might have to give it another watch. But
In fairness, the other week I did actually rewatch the original trilogy. I did rewatch that, and I do love that. All three of them are fantastic. But I think for me, it does. The remake doesn't really interest me. It doesn't really because I love the originals. I don't really know. I don't really there isn't as much incentive for me to go watch it. But I can understand why, because obviously it's the same director, Dean DeBlois. I
yeah,
pronounced his name wrong probably, but it's the same director as the original. So it's still, it would, I get it wouldn't feel as soulless as the Disney ones, but even still, just for me, there's not really an incentive to go watch it. For
yeah.
me personally,
I won't linger too long, but as we discussed over our messages, that I said that I'm actually quite more of a fan of live action and then CGI
yeah,
over traditional animation. So,
yeah.
but the main reason I went to watch this is because I'm going to Universal's new park in September, and one
Mhm.
of the four areas is How to Train Your Dragon. So I figured I need a little refresher here.
Yeah,
So it worked out quite nicely.
I can
Next
understand. That's
movie.
understandable.
Next movie, I watched Megan 2.0, the genre
Ah,
change
yes.
from going from a horror to an action film. I think it worked quite nicely. Is it quite as good as what Terminator did? No. But
I mean, anything,
it,
not anything can't be.
but I think it was still a pretty solid movie, and I quite like that they did the genre change. I think Megan is a very adaptable character. I think the reason it flopped is just because of its placement in the middle of uh, right before Superman and right after Jurassic World Rebirth. Like it wasn't going to compete in the box office. How to Train Your Dragon as well was
Yeah,
done really well. It was a
there's
bad
a
time
lot.
to release it, but
Yeah,
I think it was a solid
yeah, yeah,
film. I watched further to that. I watched Jurassic World Rebirth,
oh yeah.
and I thought it was pretty good. It didn't feel as much like a normal Jurassic Park movie. I would say for me, it's just about in the middle of the seven.
Mhm.
I think one, four, and two clear it, and then this one, and then five, three, five, and six are down here at the lower end. So I'd say it's smack
Yeah.
bang in the middle, and the IMDb score echoes that. So
I've not seen a lot of them. I've only seen obviously the original Jurassic Park. I've seen Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom,
Okay.
but I haven't seen the other. I haven't seen two and three, and I haven't seen anything post Fallen Kingdom.
Honestly, one and four, if only one and four existed, that would be perfectly fine. Because those are easily the
One,
two
one,
best ones.
one. I need to watch the original because it is a perfect film.
It's
I
very
adore
good.
that original.
But I do like
Mhm.
Jurassic World as well. I think that's also very
I mean,
good, but
that's
not quite
fine.
as good.
That was
But those two
it's
are
not as good, but I
very
enjoyed it.
clearly, those two are very clearly above the other five.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
there
Yeah,
is a very strong gap in there.
yeah,
But next one, just quickly, we're going back in time a little bit to a movie from last year. I finally watched The Wild Robot, which we have discussed a few times.
yes. We should have spotlighted that instead of Joker Sue. We really should have
Oh
done.
man, it was
But
um,
hindsight,
it
yeah.
was a very lovely movie visually, and as I
Mhm.
said earlier, someone who doesn't necessarily like animation as much, this was just really nice to look at. Like
Mhm.
uh, people like I mean, compared to say Pixar's new animation style, which is weird, that
Mhm.
they've had for like the last couple of movies now, and this animation style is really nice on DreamWorks here.
Yeah,
It's just because like I feel like Pixar's animation style I don't quite like. The Spider-Verse animation style is a little too much for me. But I think
I
stuff like
think
The Wild Robot and Puss in Boots: Last Witch
the last
are
wish.
like perfectly kind of what I'm aiming for here. Is
Mhm.
it's
It's
very
almost a middle
colorful and
ground.
vibrant. It's a
Yeah,
middle ground. It's not too much.
yeah. I can understand that. I think Puss in Boots Last Wish. I haven't actually. I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen The Bad Guys? Another DreamWorks film
Yes.
recently.
Yeah, I
Did you
saw
watch
that one.
that? Do you know the sequel's coming out as well?
Yeah, that's coming out pretty soon. I
Shall
might
we?
give that a
Shall
watch.
we? That could be about maybe a spotlight in the future, but like that style, the kind of the bad guys, Puss in Boots Last Wish, Wild Robot. It is stylized almost like storybook kind of.
Yeah, I think
Um,
DreamWorks have got it
you know,
going for animation. I think
yeah,
currently
they've been
they're
really doing
probably my
so.
favorite in terms of how movies are animated. But Megamind
Yeah,
2 didn't happen. But the other one's animations.
that doesn't count. That doesn't count. They might say don't count. Yeah,
But
yeah. Thing is, I think DreamWorks they never really lost it. They've always been very inconsistent, but they've always been really capable of doing some great
yeah,
films. And Wild Robot as well. It had the same director um as the first How to Train Your Dragon and also Lilo and Stitch, Chris
yeah,
Sanders. Yeah. And I think he
yeah.
also did I think he also did the Croods, but that's just that
It rhymes with
doesn't
Grug.
matter in the yeah. I'm not. The Croods can just like go sleep in the corner. They can just go
No,
sit in
I
the corner and think
rewatched
about
that
what it's done.
recently as well, and I thought it was alright. I enjoyed Grug, but
Of course you would, because it's Nick Cage. Of
I
course you would
enjoyed
enjoy it.
Grug.
Grug. It rhymes with
Um,
Grug.
quickly getting through the other movies now. The new
Mhm.
Predator animated film came out, Predator Killer of Killers.
Yeah.
Pretty good, very violent animation, solid film. Continuing violent films, the Netflix original Havoc came out. Uh, Plot is a little bit of like a kind of basic action movie you'd expect like Jason Statham to do, but it's Tom Hardy this
Yeah.
time. But it is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
brutal. It is really gory, and that's its selling point. So if you
Oh, yeah.
like kind of like the high intensity, gory action, almost like John Wick level kind of stuff,
Hmm.
then viewers, you may enjoy Havoc.
Possibly.
And last movie I watched in the period of time, the new Karate Kid movie.
Yes.
I thought that was really good. I think its main weakness is the fact that they tried to connect it to previous Karate Kid movies. It held up really well as its own story for the first like two-thirds of the movie. And
And
then,
then
as
try
much
to
as I hate
be
to
all
say
fan
it,
servicey.
when they
Yeah.
started bringing Jackie Chan back and Daniel LaRusso back and everything, then they started rushing it, and it got lost. Because up until then, it was a really good movie in its own right. But I get why they
Mhm.
did it. That they needed it as a selling point to get people in to watch the film.
Yeah.
I get it. But it was a
But it's
perfectly fine movie in its own right as well, and it's a little rushed at the end for it. But
mhm.
overall, I did really enjoy it though, so it was very good movie. But I feel like
It's
it
just
didn't.
like more nostalgia and just kind of
Yeah,
crowbarring it in there at the end.
I mean, I love seeing the expansion of the Miyagi universe because obviously I loved Cobra Kai and I love seeing whatever they're gonna end up doing next with all these characters. But that's
Mhm.
it for all the movies I've watched.
Right. I have got this one more. I haven't seen it yet, but I really want to. And this is like some fucking big news here, right? We
Okay.
have got we have got another Amazon original starring John Cena.
Oh no, what is it?
it's called the Heads of State. I don't know if you've heard about this.
No.
It's not long come out. It's him and Idris Elba, where John Cena plays the U.S. president.
I'm watching it. I'm watching it tonight.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get it on tonight for movie night.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's him and Idris Elba. I think he's the UK Prime Minister, but it's like some kind of action thriller. But yeah, and another Amazon original starring John Cena, which,
We
mate, this
take
is like,
it.
yeah, we got. Can we spotlight this? Never mind Superman. Can we spotlight
No,
this?
we can't spotlight this over Superman and Fantastic Four.
No,
Not a chance.
but we definitely will watch this.
Yeah, yeah.
Leave I'm now watching Amazon originals and just
Man,
what
we
a
got
best.
Danny watching Amazon Prime Originals with John Cena before GTA
I mean,
6.
I mean, I mean, it's not as bad as the all me watching all the Elvis movies. To be fair, mate, I've literally got this bloody
All
box set of
14
four.
films.
I've already
First
got
cups.
through how many? One, two, three, four. I've already watched five of these things. Yeah, I was watching one last night and happened at the World's Fair, and Kurt Russell, at like 10 years old, is in that film.
Okay.
Yeah, 10-year-old Kurt Russell's first film, and he kicks Elvis in the shin. And ironically, at the age of 10 years old, Kurt Russell had more screen presence than most of the other actors in that film. But yeah,
Before we segue into our
but yeah,
28 days and weeks, I do want to talk about a trailer
right.
that's happened. Um, I think the spiritual successor to the Minecraft movie has just revealed itself.
What is it? What? Hang on. What we doing? What
The
are we
new
doing?
SpongeBob movie trailer dropped. They're doing
I don't
another
think
one.
another one. I don't
Another
think I
one.
saw that trailer. I
I mean,
don't
I
think.
watched the first three of them. I didn't catch the Sandy and Plankton spin-off, although I heard the Plankton one's unironically good. I loved SpongeBob when I was a kid growing up, therefore I watched
Who
loads of
doesn't?
it. But the
Who
new
doesn't?
trailer, it's echoing shades of Minecraft. There's a particular bit that's being spotlighted on YouTube in memes where Mr. Krabs says, "The underworld," and that sounds a little.
No,
You can tell it sounds
no,
a little similar.
no, no, no. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing? We
We're
are
bringing it back around.
we are responsible for this as a society. We
This
are
is what Hollywood
responsible
has
for
become
this.
because we liked Minecraft.
We didn't like it. We just like the experience of getting drunk and watching it.
That said, I'm half tempted. Should we watch SpongeBob?
No, I'll watch the one with David Hasselhoff in it, but we're not watching.
Oh man. But no, I think we're gonna get another Minecraft situation. The cinema workers are already
No.
trembling in fear.
Get some buckets of water and sponges and just a lot of this.
No, don't give him ideas.
I shouldn't be. I'm we gonna lead this revolution, but yeah, they just get some fairy liquid and some water in a bucket and just get loads of sponges and just like not that's
Come
great.
in wearing nothing but Patrick shorts. Who are you calling
What?
Pinhead?
Is this thing?
Moving on. 28 days.
Okay.
Bring it back
Let's
down.
all of it.
Bring it back down.
Bring it back down. Bring it back down to earth. Okay,
You
breathe.
expelled the silliness. Bring it back down.
Yes, yeah.
28 days and 28
Because we're getting
weeks.
to something very grim now. So, see, I thought because okay, so kind of moving. It's part one and a half almost, right?
Yes.
Kind of. So obviously, 28 years later, it's come out, but this was our. I don't know about you. This is my first time watching 28 Days and Weeks.
Yeah, same.
Um, now the good thing about 28 years is that you don't necessarily have to have seen these two.
That is true.
You know, not necessarily, but I wanted to watch that, especially 28 Days because it's a quite a cult classic horror film. But yeah, we both watched them. So 28 Days later, in 2002, Killing Murphy in it. What do we think?
So,
Because I'm very interested what we all think about
first
these.
thing to note is that I actually watched 28 Days Later at the cinema. They were re-showing
They did
it.
the re-release. Yeah, re-release,
Yes.
yeah.
And so that brought up one of the movie's biggest flaws watching it at the cinema, which is that the camera quality does not hold up.
I
And
think
on the
I
big
think it's
screen,
yeah.
it really doesn't. On a TV, it would be fine, but on a big
Mhm.
cinema screen, it the camera quality was really bad. It did not hold up well in terms of
I
visually.
can I can understand that watching it on in a cinema screen. I can get that. I
Yeah,
watched it on my laptop, so it's obviously a bit of a different comparison.
yeah,
For me personally, I understand that the cam obviously it was 2002, so it's
hmm
over 20 years ago, and they were obviously that camcorder, digital camera, very primitive at the time, and obviously that was gonna date very quickly.
yeah,
For me personally, I don't mind it because I like what they're going for with it. Because Danny Boyle is because he directed 28 Days and Years. He's always been very much a filmmaker of the digital age. He's very much somebody who will experiment with different kinds of editing tricks, and his films are very kinetic and very kind of contemporary, and embracing latest technology and whatnot, which we'll cover in 28 years actually. Um, but yeah, I understand that obviously it's not held up well aesthetically, but I think it works for me because it's almost like it's sort of part found footage because it's obviously a desolate London and whatnot, and the stuff in London as well is so brilliantly done.
mm.
The kind of the Baron Street, which is like it's all on camera, it's all there, it's real, it's not CGI, it's not faked or anything. It's just they have these 10-minute windows at like 4 in the morning to get these shots of Cillian Murphy wandering around, and it's brilliantly done. I love it, and it's just really eerie. And yeah, I think that camcorder style it almost makes it feel like found footage, but it's not found footage.
I mean, yeah, the
So I don't know.
camcorder style can work. I mean, obviously, it works in movies like
Yeah,
Blair Witch and whatever. But I think
yeah,
there's a limit to the how camcorder
yeah.
quality can get, and when you blow it up on a screen that big, you lose a bit of it. I think I would have
I
enjoyed
can
it more if I watched it at home on my TV.
probably I do understand where you're coming from with that. I understand how that would make it, but for
Yeah,
me, I understand that it's maybe not held up, the best, 20 years later. But in terms of what they were going for and how it is very unique in that way, I massively respect 28 Days Later. And also as a story, as a zombie film, I think it's fantastic. I love how, you know, fast-paced it is, how, vicious it is. I love the characters. I love Cillian Murphy's great, Naomi Harris. I love Brendan Gleeson as Frank. I think he had some nice levity and whatnot. I love Christopher Eccleston as the Henry West, the army general towards the end.
I
As
liked the
As a Doctor Who fan, I love Eccleston, but he was fantastic. I thought he was brilliant and very very disturbing. And for me, I thought that whole second half when they reach the army base, and it's almost like the true monsters aren't the zombies; it's these nasty fuckers. You know, I thought there was something very interesting
yeah.
with that whole kind of the cult that they built up. I thought that was just fascinating, and I massively respect 28 Days. It's for me one of the most interesting horror films that I've personally seen. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents on 28 Days.
Yeah. I think for me, I think I found the first two-thirds of it really solid.
Mhm.
The first two-thirds, like, it was very good with the kind of
Atmospheric.
horror it was doing, and with him by himself for a while, walking through these vast deserted streets. The way I think he goes into like a church building, is it? And there's like loads of zombies in there, but just kind of look up at him.
Yeah.
Earlier
That's I think
on,
28 years. So
I think it happens in both.
is it?
He definitely
Oh.
went into some
I-
building in the first one, and there were like a load of zombies in there that kind of stopped and looked at him, and he started running away from them. And
oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, that was quite cool. And I liked well when they brought in the other characters that they then started hitting the road together, and that was all fine. It went downhill for me when they got to the military base.
I don't know. I think enjoy because it is quite disturbing, but I personally find that the most interesting aspect. I love that first 2 thirds. It's very atmospheric, great tension, some really horrible moments like when Frank gets infected. I think there's some
Mm,
really nasty moments. But the army stuff and that kind of because the reason I find it interesting is the whole idea of in this apocalyptic world when everyone's kind of disbanded, when people kind of find themselves that get together again, this army group, what values will they rebuild their society on? And for them, because they've really these really messed up values that really treat the women especially, they really treat them horribly. It's not pleasant, but I just find it such an interesting angle to take and something I don't really think at least for me, I've not really seen it done like that before.
Yes, for
Um,
me that bit is the interesting part. I do find that bit interesting, but
mhm.
I think, and this is going to sound a little ironic coming from me, but I think it almost got a little too action movie at the end, because like
You think?
I feel like Killian Murphy, I felt like his character kind of really kind of changed in that third act, where he ended up becoming almost like John McClane kind of thing, where he's going in there fighting
Mhm.
everybody, trying to save people, and I feel like it just kind of got a little too like the tone of it changed a little bit there,
Hmm.
and I feel like it kind of lost itself a little bit for me. But I feel like
That's
there's
interesting.
strings of interesting things there, like with the idea of the army group and then morale's changing everything. But I
Hmm.
just feel like it almost doesn't feel like the same film and vibe as the first like two-thirds of it. It feels a little weird to me, but that's just how I
That's
watched it. It
interesting.
was just I
I
also
can understand.
I don't think
Sorry.
all of the acting was great. I mean, Killian was, but I don't
Hmm.
think I can't remember the names of the characters. The woman and the woman was okay, and then the daughter that
Naomi
became
Harris.
Bond.
Yeah.
Don't think she was amazing with some of the delivery. But
I can let that slide. To be honest, I think for me, it doesn't affect me too much with those guys. I think they're not. It's not like obviously for them, they're not. It's not like an Academy Award winning performance, but I think because it's a more real, like grounded film. I think the acting is. It feels just a bit more grounded and not kind of as
yeah,
flashy, I suppose. So that's just that. I can understand. I can let it slide for me personally.
yeah,
For me though, with the Jim, who's Killing Murphy's character, I don't know. I get what you're saying with the whole action movie, like John McClane comparison, but for me, I found his journey of almost becoming the father figure for the kid, I can't remember her name, but who lost
yeah.
obviously her father, and then they sort of found family, that kind of him growing as a character. But to me, I found it natural. I found it a natural character arc. So him almost embracing his rage at defeating not only the zombies but the soldiers as well. I think for me it worked. I found it compelling, personally.
Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
flip the coin here. 28
28
weeks
weeks.
later, different
So
story,
it's
different
so
director.
it's in, yeah, so it's important to note that this is the only one that isn't directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland, who wrote 28 Days and Years. So this has always been kind of like the awkward middle child, or it's like one that is often forgotten about, and I would very much be in that camp, to be honest, because for me, take what you said about 28 Days becoming a bit too action movie in the final third. For me, take that and apply that to the majority of this film. That's how it feels because it feels like they've really shifted to go into a more big dumb action movie premise. And if they want to do that, that's fine. They can if they fully committed to that. I wouldn't mind. But it's sort of stuck in this awkward halfway point where you've got these big dumb moments where characters are making really dumb decisions, like Donald kissing his infected wife. Why would you do that? It's stupid, right? And it just made me not care about the characters. Or the bit where the one guy, like, cuts all the zombies' heads off with his helicopter blades, and it's just like very overblown. But then you've got these moments like the fantastic opening sequence, which is very reminiscent of the 28 Days, or that like scope section where they're looking through, where they're like sort of underground, and it's like the scope vision and whatnot. It's like it's all at odds, and I just don't really. It never picked its own lane. It never tried to be its own thing fully, and that just kind of yeah, it felt a bit lesser than, and didn't really. I didn't find it as compelling. And as I say, a lot of the characters are making some really dumb decisions throughout that just made me not care um,
Now, this is
as
interesting.
much.
This is why my previous statement about the last third of
Mhm.
28 Days Later is as ironic as it is because this movie I liked more, and that would be because it was more of an action film, but because it had that kind of tone most of the way through. Like it was more like it was more like the whole movie had the same kind of vibe. I will say
Mhm.
though that the opening sequence was very good. I did like
Yeah,
that. That was
that's I
very
think
good.
for me that is like where it peaks. For me,
It
that is
was a
where
very
it
strong
peaks because it
moment.
is. Yeah,
But I think I liked a lot of the movie. I liked a lot of what they had going on with the dynamic of the fact that there was this infected wife that they didn't realize was like that the husband and kids didn't realize was like properly infected and whatever.
yeah,
The idea
yeah.
of these kids running away from their dad who had become one of the monsters was quite interesting. I thought Jeremy Renner was pretty decent in it as well. I thought there was some good, interesting visual moments where, like you said, the scope's underground, and also when they were doing shots through like the sniper scope and everything,
Yeah.
and when they had moments like when they were telling them to kill everybody, whether they were a monster or not, and it
Hmm.
just kind of showed kind of how this virus and the containment of it had changed everything to the point where they could just
Hmm.
kill anybody for the sake of
Yeah.
containment. It was quite an interesting view there.
Mhm.
Yes,
I
it's a
think that
little
I think
bit kind of
sorry.
dumbish and not perfect, and it's not
Mhm.
really going to stick around with me. I don't think most of these movies will, but I did like it more for that at least.
I
For
don't think most of these films will stick with me.
but
That's a real glowing review there.
I no, I mean I don't. It's not one of my favorite franchises to be honest. Having watched them
Fair
all,
enough.
but I do think this one I did like slightly more. But it did at times, yeah, feel a bit generic, and at
Mhm.
least the other two do
Yeah.
feel a bit more stand out. But
Yeah, they are unique. No, it's like I think 28 Weeks definitely has glimpses and glimmers of some great ideas that you were mentioning there. I just don't think they come to the for me. I just don't think they come to the forefront because it does overall just feel a bit dumb. Some dumb choices from the characters, and I just ended up kind of not caring for it. And I just found it a bit boring, to be honest. I just kind of
yeah,
like I wasn't really engaged, and whereas the first film I think was, I found it very engaging, and I had a lot to sort of think about afterwards. It's one of those that really stuck with me, where even after I watched it, it sort of gets better in your mind. For me, that was the first film, but the second film, I just kind of like bit of a damp squib, really.
yeah.
For me, anyway. But did you watch 28 Weeks in the cinema? I can't remember. Did
No,
you?
I watched that one at home.
Oh, was it?
We almost watched it at the cinema, but we decided instead to watch it at home. I don't recall why, but we did.
Mhm.
I think it was Father's Day
That's
weekend, and so
possible.
we I
Okay, fair
think
enough.
we were doing stuff, so we.
Yeah, 28 Weeks Later would be a terrible Father's Day movie. Yay. Happy Father's Day, Dad. You're a monster. That's a really bad that'd be a terrible Father's Day movie to watch.
It's yeah, well that sums those two up. So now it's time
So
for
now on to
part two.
28 years later.
Yes, part two.
So 28 years later. Right.
That's how long it's
So
been
obviously,
between part one and part two.
yeah, no,
28
genuinely,
years later.
it's been 28 years since Kilo died. But yeah,
Ugh.
bro, keep alive. So don't be a
Good.
zombie. Anyway, so 28 years later, the third of this trilogy. Obviously, we've now kind of laid the groundwork of what we think of the first two and whatnot. Um, so I'm genuinely interested. What do we think of 28 years? Because I don't think there's as because with 28 days and weeks, there's a very clear consensus. You obviously kind of fall out of that with, you've said that you prefer weeks over days, but
Yes, but
years
I'm
is a
not normal, so
well, neither am I, mate. But 28 years though, what do we think? Because it's I think very unique. I think a very unique film. A very not what you would have expected. I think it's definitely not I would have
oh,
expected from the film.
absolutely, yeah.
You know, and I love that. I love that about it. I love that it's not. It's surprising. It's unconventional. But very briefly, of the three, where would 28 years rank? Just curious.
I'm unsure. I'm unsure. It's definitely not third. It
Okay,
but I've not really been able to come to a decision.
because for me, I'm gonna say, and it's very close, but I'm gonna give 28 years the top spot of the trilogy. But it's by a
Valid,
hair.
yeah.
But I'm going off like my gut reaction from the cinema and from watching all three of them. 28 Days may have gotten him better in my mind as time went on, but my gut reaction was the strongest for 28 years. I got the most out of it. Yeah,
I think there was a lot of good things about 28 Years. First thing I want to say is that the main
absolutely.
kid, very good actor.
Yeah, Spike. Yeah,
Yeah, real good.
yeah. Great child acting. I mean, and especially
Child acting
comparing
can
it
be
to
very hit or miss sometimes,
yeah.
but
But this lad was fantastic, and I wish him
absolutely.
all the best. I wish him all the best for the future because I think he did fantastically.
Yeah.
um, for his first film. I think that was great. And also, he was a compelling character. I mean, what I was talking about with Jim, Cillian Murphy's character in 28 days, that kind of progression of, becoming almost like the man of that sort of found family. Spike, you get that almost like boy to man journey with him,
Yeah.
which I find really compelling to watch unfold. And I just think it's carried by great performance and generally hard-hitting emotional moments with him, which we'll get onto. But yeah, I found that stuff really compelling with him. Great central character. And then you've got his mum, Isla, played by Jodie Comer.
Yes, a reminder
Uh,
before we go too much further. As per usual, we do spoilers in part two. So if you haven't seen it,
yeah, yeah,
timestamp to skip.
we definitely will spoil because we definitely need to delve
Yeah.
into spoilers for this one. But
Now that that's out the
yeah,
way,
Jodie
yeah,
Comer,
let's get back in.
yeah. But no, yeah, Jodie Comer, she was fantastic as Ella. Ella, his mum,
Yeah.
Alvy's mum,
His mom.
Spike's mum. I'm bad with names and whatnot, but she was fantastic. Like, cause she was, I wasn't quite sure what to expect from her because obviously towards the start of the film, she's kind of bedbound, she's like sick. You're kind of not quite sure. I think for me, it was like you kind of expected it to be she's infected or something. It's like because of how long it's been, the infection, the disease has kind of evolved, and it's something else, and it's a longer term illness. Could have gone any direction, but then it's revealed that she's suffering from cancer towards the end because they have to go and find Dr. Kelson, played by Ralph Fiennes, who was also fantastic. I think
Yes.
they have to go find him, but you know, there's this like myth around him that he's a bit of a nut job, he's not to be trusted, and then you realize he's actually quite sane. He's really, he is quite sane.
Yeah.
And for me, it was that scene where Kelson reveals that it is cancer, and that Ilsa has to die, you know, but ultimately that is a fate that in this world is going to be okay because the alternative is to become a zombie, is to be
Yeah.
one of the infected, and this death, and her skull being put on like the mountain of skulls, which is a fantastic image as well, like visually
Yeah. It was.
a very striking image and whatnot. But I found that I actually teared up in that section because it was really hard hitting. Like the stuff with Spike, his reaction, he doesn't want to do it, but he knows for the best. It's that conflict, and you know, it helps ground the film into something. It's so emotionally compelling, and that's the thing with Danny Boyle's films is that not just with the 28 films that he's done, but even films like Trainspotting or Shallow Grave, which I also love from him, is that he can explore really dark worlds in his films, like Trainspotting, about the drug scene in Edinburgh, the 28 films, these zombie films and whatnot. But there's always these sort of glimmers of hope and optimism. And with this, it's like, that, Isla dies peacefully in a sense,
Mhm.
you know. And I think it was something really powerful, I thought. Um,
Yeah. I do think this was a. The more we're talking about it now, I am thinking this is the best one in the trilogy because there is a lot about this
yeah.
film that really works. There's
Mhm.
just like smaller critiques on my end, really.
Yeah. I
Um,
don't think I don't think it's perfect, but we'll get onto that afterwards. But yeah, the emotional stuff in this film, I think, was because it was very unexpected for a horror film like this. But I thought it
yeah.
was expertly done, and those characters, really, it was doing great. It was, subverting your expectations in a compelling way. It was just compelling and interesting, and it kept unfolding. And I love that. I love that. Um,
I think there was an interesting change of how the zombies were handled in this one because you got a lot of different kind of types of them now. You got your regular kind of
yeah,
runners, you got your kind of large fat ones that don't move very much, they're easy to kill.
you
And
were
then you've
nervous
got
to
like
say that,
this.
weren't you?
Then you've
You
got
were
like
nervous
this.
to say that, weren't you?
Yeah,
I can tell you, but I know what you mean, though. Yeah,
and then you've
yeah.
got like this one alpha one that's really
Mhm,
massive and like stronger than all the others and more durable.
mhm. Yeah,
You've
I
got
do
like, there's
find that
different
that's an
classes of
interesting.
them now. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. It's an interesting thing as well, and I think it to a broader point. I think that's an element that kind of supports this broader point of. But again, this time skip of 28 years, that's so much longer now. So we've had, in this world, there's been more time for the zombies to evolve and for the society to evolve. And I love seeing how different this feels to the first two, because the first two, yes, they were, apocalyptic films, but obviously they were very much set within our world. Obviously you had buildings, just it was all desolate. But here you've got stuff overgrown. If you there's that one bit where there's the angel, that from Newcastle, which
Mm.
is all overgrown and whatnot, and the sort of little society that's been built on the island. It's almost like again kind of cultish. It's very sort of medieval with that very medieval sort of um gadgets and technology and like bows and arrows and stuff like that. It's very much gone backwards and it does feel very different to what the first two were doing. But I like seeing that, and I love that actually that exploration of the sort of cult, not the cult on the island, but the society on the island, and it's what I mentioned earlier with 28 Days. When a society collapses and humans then will regroup, what values do you build your society up on again? And it seems like they're functioning well, but there's these moments where, especially when Alfie and his dad Jamie they return back from hunting the zombies, and it's this weird like cultish celebration of Alfie killing his first. No, Spike killing his first. Alfie's the actor, I keep saying, but Spike killing his first zombie, and it's this weird like cultish celebration. They're all drinking, and Jamie's having an affair with another woman. It's weird, weirdly cultish, and it just it's not overt, but it's a bit off-putting, but in a really, I think, very good way. Very good way.
Yeah.
Um, I
It,
loved seeing that explored in the film. Because that's always the best part of any, apocalyptic story or dystopian story. Think this. It's the reason I love the Mad Max films. It's the reason I love the original Planet of the Apes films. I love these stories where you explore our world, but in this different lens. I find it interesting stuff, and it just conjures so many interesting questions. I love it.
yeah. I think one of the few criticisms I do have of it, though, is that some of the visual
Go for it.
decisions I was not a big fan of. There was a lot of bits where, like, you would have parts of the movie and it would be very quickly chopping and changing
Mhm.
between other different scenes, either like related to the movie or seemingly unrelated, and some sound bites that would seem almost
Yeah,
unrelated. That it
I
almost
kind of
feels a
like.
little
Sorry,
disorientating and kind of all over the place and disjointed, and I didn't particularly like that.
'cause I would say I kind of enjoy. I mean, I think it's at first it can be off-putting because you're kind of trying to figure out what. Hang on, why we cut to images of like Laurence Olivier's Henry V? Because that's what some of those like old-fashioned images are. With the armies of bows and arrows. There is using clips from Henry V, the Laurence Olivier one, the very very old one. It's trying to draw parallels with those armies in those like Shakespearean epics, in the medieval times, and the kind of medieval society that has been created nowadays in the wake of the the virus in the world of the film. So I personally like that, and also I think Danny Boyle's films, as I said earlier, he's very much on the button when it comes to more modern filmmaking and more kind of embracing the digital technology. So his if you've seen stuff like Trainspotting, for example, it's very there's some very fast cuts and whatnot, and he will cross cut between all different things, like the opening of it, where like freeze frames to show the different characters um, and there's also like in Trainspotting, there's like a sex scene where it intercuts with like a football match being played on the TV. It's like a euphemism and whatnot. But that is kind of Danny Boyle style. Like it's very kinetic, and it's almost Edgar Wright-esque. And if you can get on board with that, great. But I can understand why it's not for everyone. It's very distinct, but I personally really enjoy that style.
There were some visual things that I did like. There was
Yeah,
whenever there was like a kill, it would like
yeah. They sort of
stop for
freeze.
a moment, like a
Yeah,
really brief moment to kind of
yeah,
emphasize it, and then
yeah.
show the aftermath. And I think
That feels
that
very
was kind
Danny
of cool.
Boyle. That feels very Danny Boyle, like in very again like train spotting opening, freeze framing on the characters, and I thought that was a very interesting little technique and whatnot. Almost felt like it was like thinking about like in football, like VAR.
Yeah,
It almost kind of gave off like that vibe of like a sort of a different angle to show the different kill and whatnot. It almost kind of gave me like that vibe.
yeah. Except
But
not
in terms of like
everyone
the film,
hated this. Everyone hates VAR.
yeah, yeah, VAR can go. I'm not going to say what it can do. Um, but in terms of like the sort of filmmaking, like kind of the visual element of it, something I would like to bring up as well. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the film is entirely shot on iPhones. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I was not aware of that. That
Yeah,
that
I
that
can't.
really
I don't.
says a lot about how good iPhone cameras are now.
That's one thing I wanted to bring at this point because I didn't know if you're aware of this, but I think it was shot over like on multiple iPhones and whatnot. But that's what I'm saying about Danny Boyle embracing, the digital age, and it's what he did with 28 Days, obviously with the camcorders of the early 2000s, which of course nowadays look quite dated, but at the time it was kind of revolutionary. But even still, even in 2002, you look at, the video quality of a camera in 28 Days Later, and you look at another blockbuster, say Spider-Man, which also came out in 2002, whatever, you know, you look at that, and Spider-Man still, the actual film camera still looks good. But you look at the iPhone camera in 28 years, sorry, and it can compete with the blockbusters that we're going now, like Superman and How to Train Your Dragon and Ballerina. It can compete with them, and you don't really tell. I think that's a sign of how far technology's come in terms of like recording technology's come. I think it's
Yeah.
really impressive, and I always find it interesting when filmmakers will embrace these different techniques because it just feels different. It does. I think if you pay attention closely, you can tell it's not a film camera, or you can tell it's an iPhone to a degree, but it's not easy to tell. And I love the fact that it's a mainstream franchise film using it, not like this like indie film that's doing it. Because I don't think because I watched it's one of Sean Baker's films, Tangerine. It's from like 10 years ago now. But yeah, a very low budget film. But that was shot on an iPhone. But that was, this like, low budget indie film that is only really known nowadays, I think more so because Sean Baker's kind of become more popular with Anora, for example. But to see 28 years, this big, franchise film, big genre film, horror film, use that technique, I think it's great to see. And I always love seeing when filmmakers embrace these different techniques.
Yeah. The last main point I have to bring up on the movie is about both the opening and ending of the movie.
I knew we'd have to talk about the
We
ending at
we,
some
we kind
point.
of have to. It's been one of the
Yeah,
main
that's
talking
been a
points
big
is how
talking point.
divisive it's been. But first, let's start with the
Yeah.
opening. And the opening, much like in 28 Weeks Later, is a very good, sharp, cinematic bit of a
Yeah.
zombie attack. But this time, it's kids watching the Teletubbies, and if you ask me,
Teletubbies.
that was scarier than the zombies.
The fact that the Teletubbies is the first frame of this film, it does tell you everything you need to know. That is terrifying. But
But
yeah,
yeah, and then there's this the kid runs off to the church, and his dad's there, and his
Mhm.
dad isn't scared. He welcomes the zombies as part of.
Yeah. That's what I thought you were on about earlier with 28 Days. But
No,
yeah, 28 days.
it was very similar. There was sort of another scene in kind of like a similar setting in 28 Days, but yeah. So
Days.
in years they have this, and the dad
Mhm.
kind of thinking it's like the end times
Yeah.
kind of thing. He welcomes the zombies in, lets them get in, whatever.
Yeah.
Kid still
I
runs
do
away.
find I do find that interesting. I do personally find, even if I'm not necessarily strictly religious, I do find religious imagery fascinating. And when you use it in a story, I find it very interesting. The kind of links you can make with it.
Yeah, I
I just,
find
I
it.
do find whether or not you are religious is relevant, but like I do find what it can represent quite interesting.
Yeah, I find it quite interesting the way that how he just kind of
He
consigned
welcomes it.
himself to the fact that he's gonna become this zombie and
Yeah,
just doesn't even try and fight it, where so many people
it's
would.
fast.
It's
Yeah,
kind of fascinating. But yeah, so this kid from this open scene, he takes his dad's golden cross and he hides, and then eventually he runs away again. And he pops back up right at the very end of the film with a bunch of other tracksuit mafia looking people
Oh,
beating up
mm,
some zombies with weapons. And it's so the tonal shift of this scene from the rest of the movie.
it's weird. It's weird.
It's weird. They had me until then. They could have just ended it with Spike going off on his own and
I
he
think that
kills a
that was
zombie, and that could have just been the end. But I don't
that I thought was
get
what they were doing, but there.
I don't get it with this weird gang of people that have just turned up.
Yeah, I mean, I
Proper
mean, I
roadman.
think I do think it's quite funny that it's Jack O'Connell who's the Irish guy in Sinners.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do find it quite funny that it is him. But I mean, a lot of people obviously made the Jimmy Savile comparison with this guy.
Yes, which
With how
apparently
visually
is what it
similar
was
he is.
based on. We
Yeah.
read up on it,
Um,
and
and I don't really know. I think it's like a lot of people have obviously brought up the fact that in this timeline of film, because obviously, you know, the early 2000s is when the apocalypse would have broken out,
hmm,
is that I think the implication is that, Savile was never outed in this universe or he was never found out. And it's
right.
like, I mean, that's true, but I don't really know what the point of bringing that up is. I don't
Interesting,
really,
interesting point to make, really, with your
yeah, I don't really
films.
know. It's a bit fucking it's a bit random. I don't know. It's probably the only thing I would say. It doesn't definitely doesn't ruin the film because it is like it is a fraction
It's
of what
tiny.
this film is
It's
doing
little thing.
because the rest of this film is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just a smidge that's just like I think you could have very easily cut that off, and it didn't. I don't know what it was trying to do. I don't know what it was trying to say. It was a bit random, and obviously it's a bit kind of it's a touchy subject anyway, and it's just a bit kind of what are we trying to do here?
I feel like it's an interesting one to sit there and think, you know what would be a good idea for my movie that I'm writing? What if in this universe, Jimmy Savile never got outed? Of all things you could think of.
Yeah,
And that's what
I
came to
mean,
mind.
I mean, what's I mean,
Fascinating.
what?
Fascinating. But,
Well,
you could have
so
picked
if it is,
anything, buddy, but this is what you
yeah,
chose. Roll with it. But I guess we're setting up a
yeah.
sequel with this. But
Yeah, yeah. So
with
there's actually there's actually another trilogy. So this is like the first of
oh
the
boy,
next
there's
trilogy.
a whole
So
nother three coming.
we've got one next year which is directed by Neil DaCosta who directed the Marvels, I think,
Okay.
and I think it's still written by Alex Garland and Danny Boyle. And then there's a third film which I believe Boyle is helming as well.
Okay.
But also what you said, a bit like the other films in the franchise, you can very much watch it as its own thing. You don't need to have seen the others. But when when this trilogy kind of forms, you will see the connective tissue, which I think it's just kind of it's the perfect way to go about it
Yeah.
overall.
But
It's
that
accessible but rewarding for fans. But yeah,
yeah. That about exhausts everything I have on it. Do you have anything else you want
yeah.
to cover off about the film?
Honestly, I think I've kind of covered what I mainly wanted to cover. I have like broad points of great great filmmaking, great direction, compelling emotional drama, fantastic acting, some great scares. I love the bit in the sort of the attic when they're hiding out,
Yes.
Jamie
Yeah.
and Spike. That was a great, really tense sequence. Some great bits of tension. And again, it's just some really unexpected directions this film was going in that I just, aside from the very final scene, that I very much welcomed a lot of the unexpected elements.
Yeah.
So overall, should we give ratings? Should we give ratings?
Yeah. After you.
Right. Okay, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10, and of all the spotlights, it's my favorite,
Of all of them.
even above Mickey 17.
Wow, that does surprise me. I
I'm,
definitely
I'm
preferred
put.
Mickey 17 more than this, but
Oh, that's. I'm glad that we have it, but it's not as clear cut because I know again this won't be for absolutely everybody, but I love that about it. I
yeah.
love that it's you know.
I'm gonna
But yeah,
give
I
it
would.
a solid 7.
Okay, that's an I can understand that to be honest.
No,
I can
give it a
understand that.
solid 7 and a Mr. L thumbs up
Yeah,
seal of approval.
I say like obviously you're
But
not as generous as I can. You're not as generous as I can be with some ratings, but yeah, I really loved what this film was doing, and yeah, and just it's felt good. It feels good to actually talk about it properly because it's been a couple of weeks since I actually watched it.
yeah,
But
same.
yeah, but I was really impressed with it, and yeah, it's not my favorite 2025 film. That is still Sinners, but this is a second in terms of overall, and then of the films we spotlighted, I would put this a smidge above Mickey 17.
I think the fact that it has been as long as it has been since we watched the movie we've talked about, but we still remember so much about it,
Yeah,
says a
that
lot
says
about it
everything.
compared to, say, when we did Wolfman.
Wolfman, yeah,
Yeah, see, we were on the
but
same page
yeah,
there. We knew.
that is the film that we covered.
That is, yeah, that was, we needed
Yeah,
a film. February was a dry month.
yeah.
But,
It was January, yeah. So yeah, but
aye.
I always find even when we covered Romulus, I always enjoy the horror movie discussions that we have because there's always something interesting with horror movies that we could talk about.
Yes. But hey, that
Yeah.
wraps up part 2, so now we're going to move on to
Mhm.
part 3. And now we're back to part 3 of the podcast, in which we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about some kind of war films, but not your normal war
Mhm.
films. Some are lesser known, some not necessarily what you would expect a war film to be, and none of which are
I think
Star
that
Wars. But
Nah, nah. Well, how did you know? How did you know? I got
oh,
well, the Rise of Skywalker. No,
oh no!
I'm not touching that with a 20-foot pole. But no,
Somehow
I think the kind
Palpatine
of brief.
returned.
Yeah, piss off. I think the brief was kind of like unconventional war films because obviously you can have your generic war films where it is very much focused on the action and just very much that kind of very more simplified version of war. But I think some of these films, or some of them anyway, they explore different angles of war, maybe the aftermath of war, or different perspectives on the war and whatnot. So, and obviously you can explore a lot, films based on real life wars. You can obviously explore that
Yeah,
in films. So, am I going first?
absolutely. Yeah, kick us off. What is your first pick? And we're very confident
Right.
that there's no duplicates today. We're not having
Yeah,
another
because I
Minority Report issue.
no, we're not because like two of mine are from pre 1960. So yeah, that's what happened. But I'm gonna pick. Speaking of the Tom Cruise episode, I talked about Eyes Wide Shut, this Stanley Kubrick film.
Yes.
Well, I've got another Kubrick film because he did quite a few war films. Kubrick did. He had a bit of an anti-war kind of theme in a lot of his films, from Full Metal Jacket to Doctor Strangelove. But I've gone very early Kubrick, 1957, Paths of Glory. Right.
Okay.
So this is arguably his first big iconic film that he ever made, but it is from 1957, stars Kirk Douglas, classic actor of his day, and it's set during World War One on the Western Front with French soldiers, so 1916. So it's very much like the slap bang in the middle of World War One, and it's that very much the nadir point of World War One. Very much there is no hope in it anymore. We are just hopeless at this point. Because obviously, 1914, you had the armistice, the Christmas armistice, which is obviously that element of hope at that time. 1916 is like the nadir of the war, and you feel that in this film. It is a bleak, bleak film. It really is. But yeah, so this one, as I say, it's about the French army who try to get more of the no man's land, try to get more of the Western Front from Germans, but their attack fails, and as punishment, the higher up generals try to execute three random soldiers. They're picked from random, but yeah, they try and execute them for cowardice, and for yeah, and for yeah, for cowardice. And what am I thinking? Desertion. That's it.
Ah,
But then their colonel Dax, played by Kirk Douglas, he's very much their defender in their trial. So a lot of the film is very much focused on these guys' trial, and there are some iconic images of them in the trenches. Kubrick's tracking shots of Kirk Douglas walking through the trenches with all the soldiers and explosions going off in the background. Iconic imagery. It really is ahead of its time for 1957. Because 1950s, is the era of the big Hollywood, spectacle epics. Where you have the big sweeping battles. These films like Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge on the River Kwai. These big spectacle films. Paths of Glory is not like that. It's very, you have that element of spectacle with the trenches, but it's not awe-inspiring. It inspires dread. You see on the soldiers' faces as he walks past them all, they are getting more and more on edge and terrified because there's bombs going off around them. Um, but the very much the crux of the film is Dax trying and ultimately failing to defend the lives of these three pretty much innocent men who, you know, they're very different personalities. Some of them accept their fate, some of them try to avoid it as possible and whatnot. And it's really bleak. It's really bleak, their fates and whatnot. Um, and it's that contrast of the war environment, but also then you cut to the meticulous and dining rooms and boardrooms of all the officials, and they live these lives of luxury, and they've got all medals, and it makes you almost disgusted at their they've got all this excess and this pomp, and it just disgusts you in a way. And that's the thing, Kubrick really could get those emotions out of the audience. He made you feel these things, even in a film that is a bit simpler than his other works. You feel these strong emotions to the film. But yeah, Paths of Glory is a phenomenal film and one of the best that I've seen this year. Um, because on the surface, I wasn't sure where to cover it because I thought, oh, it looks like because I'd seen those images of Kirk Douglas in the trenches, I thought it was just a generic war action film. It's really not. That only takes up a small chunk of the film. So Paths of Glory is fantastic.
I mean, yeah, that definitely does sound unconventional, fits the bill. It's quite an interesting idea of just saying, hey, let's just kill three random people. It
Yeah,
shows how
it's
disposable they viewed their soldiers
yeah,
as. But
absolutely, yeah, yeah. But yeah, yeah, it's just bleak, and
yeah, well, I mean, a lot of war movies kind of have to be bleak, but it really gets
well,
the
not all.
reality
They're
of
not.
it across.
If you want to, yeah, Kubrick was very anti-war in a lot of his films. He was very much against that, and he plants that idea through this film, and you really feel sorry for these guys. Like there's one
Mm.
guy who tries to cling on to religion in his final moments, which we mentioned earlier. I think there's something again interesting about that. There's one guy who ends up fighting the other guy and he gets knocked out, so he's basically dead already, and he still gets dragged out, and it's absolutely horrible at some points, but such an effective film. And Kirk Douglas gives one of like an all-timer performance. It's fierce. It's commanding. He's a fantastic actor. He's the father of Michael Douglas as well. Hank Pym from
I thought
Ant-Man.
he was, yeah.
Yeah, that's who Kirk Douglas is. Yeah, but he's phenomenal, and the film is as well. But yeah, that's my first.
What did you watch the movie on?
What did I watch it on? I actually can't remember where.
If it's on any sort of like streaming or something, or if it's on like Sky Cinema, I'm actually quite interested.
I don't know if it's on Sky Cinema, but I can have a lolook afterwards. Actually,
Yeah, cool. We'll look at
um,
that later. Let me know if it's on anything accessible, and I might give that a
yeah,
watch because that does sound like a quite a. 'Cause it sounds quite like similar to some of the other kind of war films I've had interest in.
yeah.
So it might be one to
It'd
watch.
be yeah. Obviously, you've not. I don't think you've seen a Kubrick film, so that could be a very interesting starting point for you.
Yeah.
And also, it's only 88 minutes long. It's not a long film at all.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that's good. But I will. I have a feeling it's on. Is it on Amazon?
Oh, okay. I have
Yes, it's on
Amazon
Amazon Prime. It's on Amazon Prime. Yeah,
for free.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah, I've got Prime. I could give that a watch at some point soon
yeah.
after
Definitely.
the original movie with John Cena. But
That's a one hell of a double bill there. But
so
so what's your first film? What's your first film?
so first film I want to talk about, we're gonna kind of twist it from a very kind of gritty, dark war film to quite a light-hearted comedy war film. I want to talk about 2019's Jojo Rabbit.
Oh, I want to watch this at some point. I really want to watch this. Taika Waititi.
I'm definitely going to try and withhold anything spoiler related then if you intend to watch it. But yeah, so
Yeah,
this movie is about a young German boy in the Hitler Youth during World War II, whose hero and imaginary friend is Adolf Hitler, played by Taika Waititi.
I've seen clips of
And
him as Hitler, and it is really funny.
it
It
is
is really
funny. It is.
funny.
And this young German boy finds out that his mother's been hiding a Jewish girl in their home. And obviously, these kids in Nazi Germany, they were taught about how Jews were like the devil and whatever. The interesting thing for me with this film was that the film came out in 2019 when I was still doing my GCSEs, and I did GCSE history, and we learnt about pre World War
Yeah.
II Nazi Germany. We learned about
Yes,
Hitler's rise to
yes.
power. So all this stuff that was coming up in the movie, I knew about, and so it was really interesting to kind of visualize on the screen there of what that was like being in a Hitler Youth camp, because obviously these kids just thought everything they were being told was true. That's how
Yeah.
indoctrination works, and
That's
so
yeah, it's
they were convinced that Hitler was the greatest leader of all time, and that like all these people that he was saying were undesirables were bad, and that they should be reporting them and killing them. And then so obviously this kid who's grown up believing that the Jews were bad finds a Jewish girl in his home, and it obviously that causes him kind of a little bit of crisis of belief in a way,
identity.
because obviously why would his mom be hiding a Jewish girl if they're supposed to be awful, like, and then he
Hmm.
has to start questioning his own what he's been taught, and obviously
Yeah.
his buddy Adolf is gonna try and try and like keep him on the right track in quotation marks, because that obviously was very much not the right track,
Yeah.
and obviously it's about obviously Jojo kind of has to learn for himself what right is, but it's a movie that manages to balance being both powerful in its own right with also being just really funny as well.
Mhm. I think I do. I always find satires on war and this kind of stuff. I find it interesting. Like, I mean, you mentioned Kubrick, but Doctor Strangelove is very much a spoof of like all the Cold War stuff, and it's some of the stuff in it is hilarious. But there's always the dark undertone because it's like this stuff happened.
Yeah.
Like this was very real, and there's all. It never. I mean, I know bits and bobs from Jojo Rabbit. I know about the shot.
Yeah, I think I know what you're
I
talking
think
about. But
that image from the film,
yeah,
that is dark, and
yeah.
it never loses sight of that. But I think it's always important to. I think there is something about taking the piss out of evil because ultimately you realize how pathetic they can be a lot of the time.
I think in a
But
way it
I
makes
do,
it more palatable for the viewer, really, in a way, if you can
yeah,
kind of sprinkling that layer of satire
yeah,
to be able to
because
really kind of
ultimately it knocks
digest what
evil
happened.
because it ultimately knocks evil down a peg a bit. But I think because this kind of segues into a little bit of what I'm going to talk about my next film, because my next film is also a World War II film, but it came out around the time of World War II.
Oh, okay.
So I think it'd be very interesting comparing something very much from the time and then comparing something this was 2019, so what, 70 years later
Yeah.
ish? You know, how in that time, you know, almost the World War II has almost become like mythologized, and Hitler and Churchill are these caricatures that's how we think of them now. Um, But I really want to watch Jojo Rabbit. I've been meaning to watch it for a long time. Because I remember it coming out. I remember it won, I think, the Oscar for its screenplay. I
I
think it did anyway.
don't recall, but I do have the IMDb page open so I can check that.
Yeah.
But I
I've
did
just got
want to watch
Letterboxd
this.
open.
I did want to watch this one again before this podcast, but I just did not manage to get
Mhm.
around to it. But
That's fair enough. We've been
uh,
busy bees.
we've been busy bees. We
Yeah.
get one Oscar.
Was it a screenplay, I think?
It's loading. Um, Oscars winner best adapted screenplay. Yep.
That's fair. Yeah, yeah.
It was
I
nominated for
really,
quite a few, though. It was nominated for
I know.
Best Picture. It was nominated
Yeah.
for production, costume design, and Scarlett Johansson was nominated for Best Supporting Actress.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember it got a bit. I know it was a bit of an awards buzz, but yeah, I am. Yeah, I've been meaning to get around to Jojo Rabbit at some point, and I'm glad that we brought it up because it was like this just interesting point, points about spoofing war and spoofing evil and spoofing these figures in history. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever. There's an older Charlie Chaplin film called The Great Dictator, which again
Oh, I've
spoofs
heard
Hitler
about
and
it.
the
Yeah,
Nazis.
I've seen
Yeah,
like the
but that was at the
ending
time.
clip of it.
The
Yeah,
speech. Yeah,
we watched that in history
yeah.
class. Yeah.
Yeah, I did, yeah, yeah. But I think it's always very interesting that element of it. Yeah. Shall I go to mine? My
Yes,
second one?
yes. A World War II film released around the time of World War II.
Yeah.
That's going to have a very
So
different
the
take on
fil-
it.
so the film that I've chosen is from 1946, so 1 year after World War II,
Wow.
and it's very British, very much from the British perspective. It's not so much a war film as such, but it takes place in the aftermath of World War II. A Matter of Life and Death.
Matter of Life and Death. I think I've heard of it at some point, but
Don't get confused with the Wallace and Gromit one, Matter of Loaf and Death. Don't get confused with that. Um, but yeah, Matter of Life and Death. This is one that's really stuck with me since I watched it last November, and it's about a an RAF pilot played by David Niven, who he's on the radio to an operator played by Kim Hunter, and that's where their romance starts. But it's in this moment where he's very much going to die, but he miraculously survives the plane crash, and but he was meant to die, and it's sort of like heaven intervenes, and like this angel intervenes, and they have to like basically it ends up becoming like a court drama of like trying to justify his life, right? And ultimately, the love that he develops for June, who's the radio pilot who's the radio operator that he was with. Um, it's always like a power of love kind of resolution, but it works because it's very much showing the value that love and living on the earth can have, especially after one of the worst parts of human history, World
Yeah.
War Two. And in the heaven sequences, you see so many, soldiers of all these different nationalities. And it's like once they've died and gone to heaven, their nationalities don't matter because it's like it was all pointless anyway, you know. And there is this like air of like this kind of melancholic air about it, but there's also this very British dry wit about it, which makes it very entertaining to watch. And, it's got these classic actors like David Niven, who's a classic actor of his day. Richard Attenborough as well is in it
Oh yeah.
as one of the English pilots as well. Um, yes, yeah, very very classic feeling film, and yeah, it just has these ideas of what is a matter of life. What is life about really? And it's like after the war, that question is very potent. I think very much, but also as well. Obviously, thematically, the film's great, but also on a technical level, for 1946, this film's brilliant because it switches from black and white to color. So the real world stuff is in color, right? But the sequences set in heaven are in black and white. The life's literally been drained out of it. The color has been drained out, literally. Um,
That's
and
very
that,
interesting. Yeah.
and I think it relates to the film that you're going to talk about later on, which we'll get to, I
Yeah.
think. But that's why I've ended up picking this one because I thought it was quite interesting. But I love when films do that. It's plays around with it, and also the costumes, the production design, the colors, like the opening sequence with the plane crash. It cross cuts between Niven in his airplane with all the flames around him, and he's got blood on his face, and then you've got Kim Hunter who's in the radio tower. You see like the red emergency lights bathed in these like warm reds and oranges, and it's very vivid, and I love it. And it's really, creatively inspired me. This film has a lot. Um, yeah, I just think I enjoy that, RAF World War II aesthetic anyway. So I enjoy seeing that, especially at the time. But it's just fascinating to see this, the feelings that people were going through at that time reflected in film. I just find that it's like when we talk about best years of our lives. That's same year. Talk
Yeah.
about the American perspective, but I love seeing films of that time that can really capture how people felt. Coming off the back of all that.
Yeah.
But that's but yeah, I want to rewatch Matter of Life and Death soon. But yeah, it's an excellent film and I would recommend it. And that's the thing as well, even though it's an old film, it's very accessible. It's not stuffy or anything like that. It's not too long either. It's about 100-ish minutes, so it's not that long.
Yeah. Not bad.
And it's got that kind of dry British humor that it's very entertaining to watch, and it's a joy. I love it. I really do. Sorry, your number two.
Yep, my number two. As usual, whenever it's a not a specific actor we have to talk about, I always try and find a way to bring up Nicolas Cage.
I knew
Because
you were
he's
gonna pick a
got
Nick Cage
such
film.
the range that, as we've said before, we can say any topic and I can pick you out a Cage film. And I had to pick between two.
Right.
The first one I considered, and this is not the one I'm talking about, is a movie called Wind Talkers, which was about the.
Haven't heard of it.
It was about World War II, but it was about the America versus Japan side of it. And
Oh yeah.
they go into, so Nick Cage and his men go into the war against the Japanese, but they have a secret code passed through Native Americans who are the only people who know how to decipher the code. And so the primary focus of the soldiers, besides obviously defeating the Japanese, is to protect the Native Americans so that the Japanese don't get their code, so they can't tell what the Americans are planning. And I thought that
Yeah.
was a pretty decent action movie. I think it was the same director as Face Off.
John Woo.
I
John Woo.
think it was John Woo. Let me let me check. I think it was. But I did consider talking about that one at first, but then I remembered another one that was slightly more unconventional they ended up going for. But let me just pull up
Right.
Wind Talkers, 2002 film.
It is John Woo. Yeah,
John
I've
Woo,
checked.
yeah. But I decided instead to bring up a 2005 film called
Is this? I've got Nick Cage's Lord of War, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Lord of War.
I've got his on Letterboxd. I've got his filmography and I've got it like in order and I've got the 2000s here. And I was like, is it going to be Lord of War?
Yeah, it's Lord of War. So Lord of War in 2005 is about a man who's an arms dealer and sells the weapons used in the war. Now, the first thing to talk about this film is the opening sequence is very good, and the opening sequence is basically the journey of a bullet,
Ooh.
from the bullet's perspective of being made, of being shipped to one place, to another place, to another place, before being loaded
Where
in a
do I?
gun and
I
shot.
feel like I've seen. I feel like I've seen that
You may have seen that
sequence.
clip by
I
itself,
feel like I've
but
seen that.
yeah,
I feel like I have.
really nicely
It
shot
rings a bell.
scene. But yes, the movie is about Yuri Orlov, is a Ukrainian immigrant who decides he's going to become an arm dealer with his brother, who I believe was played by Jared Leto in a rare good performance from him.
It's
But
fucking Jared Leto.
I think it was.
You're
Um,
kidding.
gonna have to check
Fucking
now.
Jared Leto, man.
I'm pretty sure
It
it
is
was.
Jared. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Jared Leto.
it's
I can't
Jared
believe
Leto, and
Jared.
he's actually good for once. Would you believe?
No, I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's actually decent in this one. But yeah. So he works with his brother to sell arms to different countries that are having war with each other. Especially when he starts forming a partnership with an African warlord, and it's the balance between obviously the financial gain that war brings and the amount of people who can make so much money off of war selling weapons, as well as then
Mhm.
the morality behind it that Cage's character Yuri has to kind of come to grips with and figure out what he's going to do. And I think it's quite an interesting film because most war films are going to talk about the war itself and the people in the war, and
Yeah.
even outside the war, the people who were in the war. But most people aren't going to consider the angle of the person who supplies the weapons, who gives the
It's an
guns to
interesting
these
point.
people in war, and how they
Yeah,
profit
it's an
off of
interesting.
both sides.
It's an interesting kind of like point to take. It kind of reminds. It's giving me vibes of like Paths of Glory, and it's very much the almost the behind the scenes of war.
Yeah,
You know, because
that's
ultimately war, you know, because the true wars really are fought by the heads of the
yeah.
armies, not the actual soldiers who go out to fight. You know.
Yeah, I thought this would be a more interesting one to talk about because it's a lot more unconventional than Wind Talkers was. Wind Talkers is very much
Mhm.
it's an action movie that's
Like
literally
battles and
in a
stuff.
war. There's battles and everything. But I did find it interesting the angle with the secret code and the natives and whatever. But this is its own thing really, where it's not about the fighting of the wars. It's about the way that wars are profitable for people, and that
Mhm.
in reality, the winner of the war is the person supplying the weapons and getting the money, especially from when you can supply weapons to both sides of the same war. And to all these different like third world countries that don't have like modern weapons that you can go and give one side guns in exchange for a lot of money, and they can wipe out any other third world country that doesn't have guns. It's such
Mhm.
an interesting concept, really, of how arms dealing is quite a large factor in war, really, that a lot of people don't really think about. You don't think about, oh, how do these soldiers get the guns? You just
Yeah, it's
assume, oh,
definitely
they're given to them. But a lot of people get their guns illegally from arms dealers, and
I just assume that Johnny got it.
okay, foreshadowing, late
Yeah.
foreshadowing.
but
But
but no, but like in
yeah,
all seriousness, it's like a genuinely interesting. It's something I hadn't really considered and whatnot, and I do think it's an interesting kind of perspective on it and
no,
whatnot.
Cage gives a very good performance as usual from my guy Cage. He's and I do love that I can always just kind of find a way to bring him up
Yeah,
and to bring up a good movie, not to drag out any of his rubbish early 2010s
yeah,
nonsense, but
yeah,
not like when he was
yeah.
making
No,
four bad movies a year or anything. Like I can pull out
yeah,
a
not that.
good movie on any topic, and Lord of War
Yeah,
is a good film.
man was like dude was severely in debt in the early 2010s making all his movies.
Yeah, 2010s was bad.
But
But there is a Lord
yeah,
of
but no,
War 2
I
coming out soon, and I'm not really sure what they're going to do with that. But there's another Lord of War coming, and I believe, and we'll see what happens there. Bro's giving me
right, okay.
the rock eyebrows there. With the,
I'm trying to think like what would the sequel be about? Like pulling bullets out of
I,
people? What's the sequel
I
gonna be
don't know.
about
I
that?
guess it will continue with arms dealing, but I guess
I
there's
guess
a
so,
lot
yeah.
more you can do with how war has changed over time. But there is
Maybe,
probably more
yeah.
you can do with it. But I'm interested to see if
Possibly.
that happens and what direction that goes in. But that wraps up for me on Lord of War. So
Mhm.
if you've your third movie,
So my final movie. Now, I was almost going to go with Inglourious Basterds, the Tarantino film, right? Because I wanted to talk about Tarantino film. War movies, very unconventional. It's a very well-known film, though, as well. But I watched something yesterday, right? And
yes.
I was like, actually, I've changed my mind, and I want to talk about this one because it's a lesser-known film. I think it's actually the first non-English film. It's a Finnish film. So I
Okay.
don't think we've actually talked about a film that's not UK or US, have we?
Besides your very brief mention of Parasite in conjunction with Mickey 17, no, we've not really
But
talked in
in terms
depth
of like
about.
Spotlight, I don't think in terms of like
Wait,
Spotlight, I don't think we have. But yeah, this
Suspiria.
film.
Suspiria is Italian. Is it in English or
Oh, oh yes.
you
I
did
mean,
mention
technically,
Suspiria?
actually, yeah. So this is the second one, and this is also mostly spoken in English as well. But yeah, so it's a Finnish film from 2022. It's called Sisu. I don't know if you've seen this one.
Doesn't ring a bell.
No, I say it's not a well-known film, but basically this one is admittedly a bit simpler. I wanted to kind of explore it because it's obviously a different country, but it's set in World War II again, with the Finnish trying to get the Germans out of Lapland. And that's kind of the kind of atmosphere that we're kind of dealing with and kind of historical context of it. But it's focused on this ex-soldier who's mining for gold in Lapland. And when he tries to, that's like his jackpot. And he tries to take it to the city, but then Nazi soldiers who are led by this really brutal SS soldier who's really kind of really nasty piece of work. They basically try and hunt him down. And it's basically this long cat and mouse chase trying to get him. But this ex-soldier, he's like Rambo, but dialed up to 1,000. Because this film is it's like those big 80s action films like Rambo or the Schwarzenegger films or the Stallone films, but the violence is dialed up to it's ridiculous. It's
Wow.
over the top. The way that this guy deals with these Nazis, like he literally throws a landmine across the field and it hits one of them and he blows up, or stuff like he literally ties one of the soldiers on a plane to a bomb and looses the bomb and drops him to his death, or it's absolutely bonkers and wild, but it's so entertaining. And as I
Wow.
don't really have much in terms of like meaningful analysis like I did with the other two. This is just a really entertaining film that I wanted to recommend. And of these three, I think this is the one that you'd love the most. It's on Netflix, but
Netflix.
I could
Okay.
see you getting I could see you getting a lot out of this because it's really entertaining, and there's so many moments where you just kind of you really feel the pain. It's like, oh God, that's really painful, and it's proper brutal, very unrealistic, but the way it's done, the filmmaking's great. Visually, even though it's this barren wasteland, it's still very visually interesting and unique and vibrant. And the oranges of the sun, the blues of the dark night, and all that sort of stuff. I say the set pieces are brilliant. It is almost a bit Tarantino-esque as well because they kind of split it up into chapters. So you have like the obviously him discovering the gold, then he faces the Nazis, and then he goes to like this the minefield. Then he's at like a dock. Um, so it's kind of almost episodic in a way, of very much the trials and tribulations of him trying to escape these guys. But it's so fun. It's really entertaining, and there's I don't really want to spoil some of the moments and the other moments in the film because there's certain moments that had me bursting out laughing with how cool they were. It's just like there's one in particular that with the female prisoners that the Nazis are having, right? Basically, it's basically how they get their come how they how they get their comeback on the Nazis. But shut up, don't don't get any ideas, matey. That was a slip up then, but basically
It
the
was an
Nazis get their
unfortunate
comeback
slip
from these
up.
guys. No, I mean it's not as bad as in my live stream. I instinctively said GI Blue Balls. I instinctively said it live on the stream.
Wow. GG's.
But yeah. So that's all I really have to say about Cecil. Like, it's not the deepest film in the world. Like, it's not. I don't really have that kind of meaningful analysis that I have with some of the other two, for example. But it's just really entertaining. And I wanted to recommend something a bit more obscure than Glorious Bastards. And I literally watched it yesterday. And it's just like, yeah, I'm going
Yeah.
to recommend it to a lot of people. So go give it a watch. It's really fun, and I knew you'd enjoy it.
Yeah. Might have to check that one out as well. We got some good picks
Yeah,
today.
definitely, yeah.
Very strong part
And
three.
I've really enjoyed this one. I've really enjoyed a lot of the
Yes.
conversations we've had. And but yeah, our final one for this one, and it's we've both seen it, but it's one you've been dying to talk about for a long
Oh
time.
yeah. The last movie on the list is a quite an old, I think, 70s film,
71.
71. It's a
Yeah,
movie called Johnny Got His Gun, based off of the book of the same name, written by Dalton Trumbo.
that's
And
correct.
yep, this was written about World War I, about a soldier from Canada who gets sent in to fight a war he doesn't really know anything about. Unfortunately for him, he gets blown up. However, most people would die there, but not this guy, not this poor man. No, he survives being blown up, and he wakes up in black and white in a hospital, and he can't see anything to begin with. And so he's worried and panicked. He's not sure if he's alive or dead. And as the movie goes on, he starts to realize that more and more of him is missing. And so he notices no arms, no legs, no mouth to speak with,
He
no
can't see.
eyes. He,
He
he,
can't
he,
hear.
he literally, all he has is his torso, the half of his head is left, and he can feel, and that's about it.
He's literally just existing at this
Exactly.
point,
And what I find
and it's
interesting
really,
about this is
it's really. Oh, sorry.
it's the opposite of what you said with your movie. Was in your one, it was real world is in color, and afterlife in heaven, it was black and white. In this
Hmm.
movie, his dreams and memories are in color, and his reality, his grim existence, is in black and white. Which because that is worse than death in this
Yeah,
instance. And
he's literally had the light. He's had the life. I always think of it like, in black and white, the life and color is sucked out of you
yeah,
essentially, and it's that kind of old adage. And I think the way it's represented here through the
mm.
black and white when he's in this comatose sort of state. It's really effective. It's really horrific. I think that
Oh yeah,
concept.
it's
The only
really
thing, the
bad.
only thing I will slightly knock against it is because obviously he has a voiceover, which obviously, but kind of
Yes,
his narration.
his thoughts.
I
Yeah,
think, I think at times this is my only real nitpick with the film. I think sometimes some of those can be a bit corny, a bit over the top. I don't know
yeah. I
whether it's
mean,
the sound. I don't know. I don't know whether it's the principle of having narration or whether it's the sound mix. But just it did take me out a little bit. But the actual idea of this guy just
yeah.
literally existing and nothing
Yeah,
else
to be fair,
is
I had the
disturbing.
same thought as well, but I just put it
Hmm.
down to acting wasn't as good. But
Yeah. Or I think maybe it might be I think it could be the sound mix as well. It's a bit kind of off.
possibly.
Hmm.
But so this man who's finding out more and more of him is missing, and he doesn't know any concept of time. He doesn't know any idea of when it's day and night, when he should be awake or asleep. So he starts to dream a lot and tries to go through his old memories and go through dreams to try and find a way to have some kind of existence and be able to communicate. And as time goes by, some of the nurses start being a little nicer to him, and they
I love the one who tells him when it's Christmas Day.
yes, yeah, they're
That is
like the
really
nurse
that's
starts
really
telling him when
it's
it's
that yeah.
Christmas, so he has a concept of years, and he could start counting time from that. And so it kind of gives him a little bit more hope again. It gives him a little bit more life, really. And then I suppose I'm going to go into full spoiler territory for this one because
Yeah.
I knew the plot of the film before I watched it, but I still watched it because you have to watch it to
Mhm.
understand the depth of the story it's telling. But after a while, he goes through a lot of dreams, a lot of ones where he's talking to is it God or Jesus that he's talking to?
I think it's Christ.
It's
Donald Sutherland
Christ.
plays him.
Yeah, so he's talking to Christ
Yeah.
in a
I
lot of
do
them.
I love all those elements. I think again that religious imagery I just
Yeah,
find really
he's trying
fascinating.
to find hope in the religion of did he do the right thing going to this war?
Hmm.
Is he going to be okay? Why is he still alive? Is heaven real? Is anything real? Because he doesn't know himself half the time what's real and what's part of his memories and dreams now, and
Exactly.
he
Yeah.
can't always separate his memories from his dreams. And but eventually he gets to a memory of his father teaching him Morse code. To which point he then realizes this is how I communicate with the hospital staff.
The
He
yeah,
starts knocking his head against the pillow to do Morse code, and eventually, once people realize he can speak to us, and they go in and they ask him about what he wants and everything, and he says he's like SOS to get their attention, and then he starts trying to converse with him about what he wants and what would help him, and he has an interesting idea about wanting to basically be a circus act paraded around for everyone to see the horror of war. Uh,
yeah.
but of course, the general doesn't want that. The general doesn't want that getting out. They don't want to dissuade people from fighting the war at this point because it's not over yet. And so obviously they deny that, and so he asks him what else he might want, and he very bluntly requests
Cool.
that they kill him. Yeah,
It's
and
really dark. It's
it's
really
very
dark.
dark. And of course, the general doesn't want that either because this is a man who somehow survived a horrific explosion. They want to study him, and they want to study how he's alive. But as it gets towards the end of the movie, he's realizing he's probably not going to get to die. He's going to be stuck in this miserable existence. A nurse comes back in, the same nurse who's been quite nice to him throughout, and tries to offer him an escape by cutting off his supply tubes and everything. But
That gets fold.
right before he's able to die, and he sounds so grateful for the fact that he's about to die, the general comes in and sees what's going on and saves him. You don't really want to say
Not really,
saves
though.
him. It's not
Yeah, it
saving.
doesn't really, no.
Saves him in the conventional sense of stops him from dying and fires the nurse, locks the door away, and locks this man away. And the final visual is this fading outwards and fading to black of this man in despair, throwing away everything he believes and any hope that he'll ever be free of this state of existing, not living, but just existing.
Mm.
It is so dark. And I watched
It's a
this,
bleak ending.
I watched this, I think, around the end of last year, like maybe Octoberish, and it is still stuck with me, and I still remember it very
Mm.
clearly. It's just such a
Yeah,
bleak ending, but I think it was a very impactful film, and it's a very strong film for the anti-war movement.
very. Especially at the time, 1971, very
Mm,
that time, I think we might have talked about it before, but like Vietnam, America losing,
yeah.
really losing at that time. This was very potent for that time.
And
And
obviously, at the
and
time, the
also the
book was
new
written as well. The book, I think, was
yeah,
written in between World War One and Two. I think it was written in
I
the
think yeah,
20s.
yeah, it was I think it was. But that's the fascinating thing, even though the text is based about a war from 50 years before that, how the
Mm.
ideas and feelings can still resonate in the midst of different wars, in that case, like Vietnam, for example.
It's interesting as well
But yeah.
that the author of the book is also the director of the movie. He adapted his own
Yeah.
book into the movie. Because obviously, a lot of
Yeah.
times,
Donald
someone
Trumbo.
else will direct a movie based off
Adapt
the
it, yeah.
book, and things don't get
Yeah.
translated across. But he got to make the film based on his vision of his book
Yeah.
that he wanted to
It's
make.
very it feel,
Interesting.
it's the only film that Donald Trumbo ever directed as well. Because he
Mm,
was mainly a screenwriter in Hollywood, did like Roman Holiday, which is a great rom-com, Spartacus. Um, but yeah, he's a very it feels very personal, very unique. Yeah.
yeah, I cannot believe that I've been talking about Johnny Got His Gun today, and I knew I was going to be talking about it, and I missed the opportunity to wear my Metallica and Justice for All shirt because Metallica's song One features a lot of cuts from this movie in the music video, and One is the lead single off of And Justice for All, the Grammy-nominated 1988 album. And so I cannot believe I didn't think to wear the same shirt I wore the last 3 or 4 episodes now for the episode where we're specifically talking about a movie that Metallica own the rights to. But
'Cause it was in the washer, that's why.
no, it was on the hanger. I completely forgot. I had to pick a
Have you
shirt this
ironed
morning, and I was like,
have you ironed your shirt?
no.
Uh uh uh.
But yeah,
God damn it.
because
Yeah, I
Johnny Got Gun is a very obscure movie. It didn't
Very.
get much attention at the time, and most people
Well,
don't know
the
it now.
fun, the interesting thing is that Dalton Trumbo, obviously, who wrote it, but he was a acclaimed like screenwriter at the time. He was actually, I believe, he was blacklisted during the 50s because I believe he was tried for communism. You know, the whole Red Scare period of the 50s.
Oh yeah,
There was a group of like Hollywood officials called the Hollywood Ten. I think Trumbo was one of them
I think it
who
was
got basically
actually.
black,
Yeah,
but I think he got blacklisted for communist sympathies. Um, I think he was, but he was very much yeah he was yeah very much blacklisted. So I can understand it being quite obscure. He kind of
yeah,
fell into obscurity because of that. Um, and Johnny got his gun. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Quite an obscure film, but
mhm.
most people who know about this film now are from the Metallica fan base, because Metallica bought the rights to the film so that they could keep airing their music video during concerts and whatever. So they had this idea in '88 when they were making their album "And Justice for All," and James, the lead songwriter and guitarist, wanted to write a song about feeling trapped inside yourself. And so,
That's so appropriate. That's so appropriate
one of
then
the other
for.
bandmates, I think it was Lars, the drummer, said, "Oh, by the way, got this movie here, Johnny Got His Gun. It might have been Kirk, I don't know. But either way, so they watched this movie, and then they decided to write one off of the back of it, because it was exactly what James wanted to write about, was feeling trapped and
Mhm.
isolated in yourself. Um,
Perfect.
yeah, it was when the band was going through kind of a lot of darkness at that time, and a lot of that is reflected in the album. But one is the nadir of how dark the album gets,
Mhm.
and so they made their first ever music video, which involved footage of them in a large kind of warehouse playing the song, interspliced with the scenes from the movie. And
I have seen a bit of the video, and I've seen obviously that they cross cut between
yeah,
them playing and the clips from the film
and
of
the
Joe with in the
song
coma.
the song essentially summarizes most of what the movie's about within just under 9 minutes. So I found the song and I thought, okay, well, and then what's the music video? So I watched the music video and I thought, what's this movie? And then I found out what the movie was, and I thought,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to try and watch it. I want to see what inspired this song, because one is an absolutely brilliant composition, and obviously I discussed how it's structured when we were talking about Sinners, and
Yeah,
obviously the
I
effect
remember that.
that the inspiration of one had on that movie, of how it was structured. I thought, okay, I'm going to watch the movie, and so I'm on the bus to work, and I pull up my phone, and I started watching the movie because it was just on YouTube, and so I started watching the
Mhm.
movie, and it was not an experience I'm going to forget anytime soon. It was because of just how kind of, that's the word I'm looking for. It was just so
There's nothing else
hopeless.
quite like it.
it it it
There's
it,
really nothing quite
it
like
was
it.
completely devoid of hope. Like, if you want a happy ending, you don't watch this film.
Yeah,
It's
but I mean, the glimmers of hope that you find at points in the film, they get snuffed out very
Oh,
quickly.
they do. They get snuffed so quick,
Mhm.
and a lot of people watched the video of one when it came out and were completely scarred by the story of it and the scenes from the movie. And some of them would go on to watch the movie and would be haunted by watching this film because it would just have that much of an impact. And
Mhm.
Metallica have done a lot of anti-war songs. I mean, "For Whom the Bell Tolls" is pretty popular. You may have heard that name.
I'm not. I must confess, I'm not massively familiar with Metallica stuff.
Yeah,
It's
but
just not. It's just not like a genre that I'm
yeah,
particularly kind of familiar
they've
with.
done a
But
lot of anti-war stuff, but the pinnacle of anti-war stuff is one, for and because of this movie, and it's just it's interesting how the movie kind of got a new life when one came out,
yeah,
because by then I probably anyone who'd wanted to see it and seen it in the '70s. I mean, no one really thought about it. But I thought it was just a really fascinating pathway that I found this obscure movie from the '70s that even you didn't know about, and
Yeah,
I
I've
got
never
here
genuinely
from
until you
Metallica, so it was
like
just such an
until you mentioned it,
interesting.
I'd never heard of this
It was
film.
just such an
Yeah,
interesting little string of how this is a movie I never would have heard of, and I never would have experienced had not for the fact that I'd got into Metallica and it opened the gates of this movie. But
it's
I
really
did,
cool that you discovered it that way, and it's how
yeah,
it's connected with you and how it's your film. It wasn't like an opinion. It wasn't like because I think a lot of classic films they often like stuff like The Godfather and Taxi Driver. I'm thinking 70s films particularly. These are films that every like film bro will tell you, oh, you got to watch this, and it's like, okay, I mean, and they're great movies, right? But it's when you can discover something yourself
yeah,
and you find that's really satisfying. And it's not an opinion that the internet gave you. It's just you made that discovery yourself, and that's really cool.
yeah. So I'm really glad I finally got to talk about this movie because I think it's a very impactful
Yeah,
movie, as well as obviously the fact that it leans
yeah,
into my Metallica obsession. But I just like
exactly. Yeah,
I think
exactly. Yeah,
the movie was just it was completely different to most other war movies I've seen. A lot of war
definitely.
movies will glorify war, or a lot of them will be very brunt with the anti-war message. This was a very different way of going about it, of showing the effect on one life. There's a particular quote
Hmm.
from the book that I don't believe made it into the movie, but I know this quote. I think it's really impactful and shows kind of um, the unfortunate circumstances in. He makes a quote about the fact that when you play the lottery, you have a 1 in a million chance of winning. But someone's got to be that lucky one to win it. What
Hmm.
happened to him is a 1 in a million chance that you get blown up and you survive like that. But someone's got
He
to be
was.
that unlucky one, and that's why the song is called One.
Oh,
Somebody's got to
that,
be that unfortunate one person who somehow survives that horrific explosion.
that makes sense. That does make sense.
And I wish they'd left that quote in the film because obviously I've paraphrased it, but it was a very powerful quote when I
Hmm.
read it in the extract
Have you
about.
read the book?
I haven't read the book fully,
Would
no,
you
but I've seen
would you
extracts
like
of it.
to?
I would be half tempted to read it, to be fair,
Hmm.
because I think it obviously there
Be
are going to be
interesting.
things that you would get from the book that you won't get from the movie.
Yeah. Be
But
interesting to see what your take of it would be actually.
yeah, but yeah, I thought that quote was really interesting, so I wanted to bring that up as well because obviously it wasn't in the movie. But we always say that like someone's got to be the lucky one to win, but then when it's a 1 in a million bad circumstance, you're like, oh, it'll never happen. But it does. So
Yeah,
it
but
happens, and someone's got to be that person it happens to. And this guy was just unlucky enough that it was him. But I think it's a very fascinating movie.
it really is, and I'm glad that you got me to watch it because it is. I say it's a very unique film, and I'd never heard of it, but I'm glad that I checked it out.
Yeah. So like did you like the film? Like, was it something that you thought was like really good, or was it just like, oh, this is interesting? I mean, I'm
No, I
interested.
did really like it. I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10, maybe a low 8 out of 10. But I
Okay, yeah,
still,
that's fair.
I thought it was very good. It's not like I'm not obviously because you're very passionate about it. I'm not as
Yeah,
passionate just because obviously we have that different connection of how we got to the film. But I still really liked what it was doing. I think it's a very overlooked gem, really.
I really love the fact that I managed to pick out an old film.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, exactly. That's good. Yeah, but yeah, this might be my favorite part three that we've done
This has been a
actually.
very solid part three.
It's been a really strong, but I've really enjoyed this one. But
Yeah,
actually, the episode overall, I've actually really enjoyed this one.
yeah, it's a pretty good episode. We've had a lot
They're
to talk
great.
about.
Yeah, we've been chatting a lot, haven't we? But yeah, no, some really interesting stuff that we've talked about with this one. So let's open the conversation to you guys. What do you all think of 28 years later? What do you think of the 28 days and weeks later? And what do you think of any of the war films that we've talked about, or highlight some of your, I say favorite war films, but highlight some war films that you find quite interesting. What is your Johnny Got His Gun? What is your matter of life and death? We want to know that.
Yeah, and then obviously next episode is going to be the first episode of year two,
And it
because
is a double
it's a double
feature. Am I
feature.
right?
Because we couldn't weigh up: do we go with Fantastic Four, the new MCU movie, and hope and like another attempt at trying to make a good Fantastic Four movie, or do we go with Superman kicking off the DCU for James Gunn? Both are very significant in their own right. So we thought, let's do
and the
both
answer
and pit them
was
against each
no.
other.
Yeah, it's like, do we go for Fantastic Four or do we go for Superman? The answer is yes. Literally is, yeah. But yeah, we'll do something a bit different, shaking up the formula a bit. As for the part three next time, I don't know what we want to do.
We'll figure it out.
We'll 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 come up with something in this time. We got time. But
Yeah. But obviously, part two is going to be
yeah,
meaty, being a double feature. Say that again.
yeah. Settle
Double
down now.
feature. Hmm.
Yeah, man. Okay, I'll
Hmm.
stop now. I'm gonna
It's
stop now because I need to lie down.
yeah. Yeah. So
But yeah, I hope you
thanks.
guys
Thanks for watching.
for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, whatever. I don't know what you do on Spotify, but like
Yeah.
whatever it is, do that.
And obviously, talk to us and let
Yeah,
us know your thoughts, and we will
yeah,
see
we
you
love
in
to
the
hear
next one.
episode 13, which is when it's all gonna go downhill because episode 13 is unlucky. Way right. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.